She came to shut the farm down. Instead, she uncovered a crime buried for decades. The Berg estate stretched across the horizon like a living tapestry of green and gold. Rolling fields, meticulously cultivated orchards, and ancient oaks lined the horizon, their branches whispering in the afternoon breeze. Nicole inhaled deeply, letting the earthy scent of soil, grass, and distant wildflowers fill her lungs. She had been sent here as part of her professional duty, but beneath the veneer of bureaucracy, she felt an undeniable curiosity and an unspoken tension about the man who ran this land. Eric Berg appeared suddenly, striding down the main path from the farmhouse, his tall frame commanding attention. He moved with the assuredness of someone who had grown up with this land, someone who believed it, and every decision about it belonged to him. His dark hair caught the sun, and his eyes, sharp and assessing, locked onto Nicole with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. "You must be Nicole," he said, his tone even but edged with suspicion. "I've been expecting the inspection. Are you here to criticize my work, or just make sure I follow the rules?" Nicole held his gaze, sensing the subtle challenge in his words. "I'm here to ensure compliance with regulations. Nothing more. I expect honesty and cooperation. That's all." Eric's lips curved into a faint smirk. "Honesty? From me? That's rich. I run this estate my way. Anyone else just has to deal with it." Her pulse quickened, but Nicole maintained a steady, calm voice. "Running it your way is fine, as long as it doesn't violate any laws or endanger the environment. I'm not here to argue personally, only professionally." For a long moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft sounds of the countryside, the distant lowing of cows, the whispering of the wind through the leaves, the faint hum of bees over the flowering orchards. The tension between them, however, was palpable. It was as if the very air had thickened with anticipation. Eric studied her carefully, his sharp gaze appraising, measuring. "You're spirited," he admitted quietly, almost grudgingly. "Not many can meet my stare and hold their ground. That's unusual and impressive. If it doesn't get in my way, I might even respect it." Nicole's lips twitched into a faint smile, though she kept her posture straight, professional. "I assure you, my goal is the farm's well-being. If that coincides with your priorities, then we're already on the same side." Eric's smirk lingered, a mix of curiosity and guarded amusement. "We'll see how that goes," he said, turning to lead her along the main field path. As they walked, the initial hostility began to shift subtly. Their conversation was precise, pointed, each testing the other's knowledge and patience. Nicole noticed the way Eric spoke about the land, not just as property, but as a living entity, something worth protecting. His tone softened when discussing the orchards, his eyes lighting up as he recounted the care taken to nurture new saplings, the methods used to preserve soil health. For the first time, Nicole felt a flicker of admiration for the man she had assumed to be just another arrogant heir. Yet suspicion lingered. Every thoughtful glance and carefully chosen word was counterbalanced by caution. Nicole was aware of the responsibilities she bore and the potential for hidden agendas. Eric, for his part, noticed her keen observation, her careful analysis, her refusal to be intimidated. There was a spark of mutual challenge here, an unspoken duel of wits that neither could ignore. They reached the old irrigation sector, where rusted pipes twisted among the fields, a relic of the farm's past. Here, the contrast between modern machinery and the enduring landscape was stark. Nicole's notebook came out as she began to take notes, but her eyes frequently flicked to Eric, watching his reactions, noting the subtle tension in his shoulders, the way his brow furrowed when she questioned the irrigation schedules. Eric, sensing her scrutiny, straightened, a flicker of respect and frustration passing over his face. "You ask a lot of questions," he said, a hint of exasperation in his voice. "Not many do. Most people just nod and smile. But you're relentless. I can respect that. And I can see you're here for the right reasons." Nicole met his gaze evenly, feeling a strange mixture of irritation and intrigue. "I always try to be thorough," she said. "It's part of the job. And besides, the land deserves it." A breeze swept through the fields, carrying with it the faint scent of wildflowers and freshly turned earth. In that moment, both felt it, The undeniable tension between duty and personal connection, skepticism and curiosity, challenge and attraction. The collision had begun. What started as professional friction had already sparked something more, something neither fully understood but could not ignore. By the time the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the rolling fields, Nicole realized one thing clearly. Her stay at the Berg estate would be far from ordinary. Every glance, every word, every silent assessment carried weight. And standing beside her, Eric Berg was already proving to be an adversary, and a magnet she could neither predict nor resist. The next morning, the farm stretched beneath a sky streaked with pink and gold, the sun slowly warming the dew-kissed fields. Nicole followed Eric on a tour of the property, notebook in hand, every step taking her deeper into the world he had built and protected. She had expected a sterile inspection, a checklist of compliance points, but instead, she found herself immersed in a landscape alive with care, dedication, and unspoken pride. Eric walked beside her, pointing out the intricacies of the irrigation system, the crop rotation schedule, the careful placement of windbreaks, and the delicate balance between modern efficiency and environmental preservation. Nicole noticed the way his eyes lit up when describing the saplings they had planted last spring, or the methods he used to keep the soil fertile without over-relying on chemicals. "You really care about this land," she said softly, almost to herself. Eric glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Of course, this isn't just a job, it's a responsibility. It's what my family has built, and it's what I want to leave behind. I'm not just managing land, I'm safeguarding a legacy." Nicole found herself unexpectedly moved. There was a sincerity in his voice that made it impossible to ignore. And for the first time, the man who had seemed cold and confrontational now appeared vulnerable, passionate, and profoundly human. They reached a small clearing where the rows of crops opened onto a wide meadow, the golden light of the late afternoon casting long shadows. Nicole paused, taking in the scene. Eric followed, and for a moment, neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, layered with the unspoken understanding that their earlier tensions had softened into something more nuanced. Eric broke the quiet first. "You're not like the others who come here," he said, voice quiet, almost hesitant. "You see more than rules and regulations. You see the land itself. That's rare." Nicole met his gaze, feeling a flutter of something unfamiliar, a warmth spreading through her chest. "I've always believed that the environment deserves more than perfunctory attention," she replied. "It deserves respect and people who care. I see that in you." A subtle pause followed, filled with the hum of insects, the distant call of birds, and the rustle of leaves. Then, almost without thinking, Eric extended his hand to point at a particularly vibrant patch of wildflowers. Nicole's hand brushed his, and for a fleeting moment, the contact lingered. A small spark ran through her, undeniable and electric. She looked up, meeting his eyes, and noticed a softness there she had not seen before, an unguarded humanity that both unsettled and captivated her. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Eric guided her toward the edge of the meadow. The gentle slope overlooked a small river that snaked through the property, reflecting the fading light. Nicole's heart thudded unexpectedly fast as he paused beside her, the wind teasing loose strands of her hair. "You know," he said, his voice low and thoughtful, "I don't usually show people this part of the farm. Not like this, not with explanations and stories. But you make me want to." Nicole felt a blush rise to her cheeks, a combination of flattery and surprise. "I appreciate it. Truly, I never expected to see this side of the estate." Eric's gaze lingered, and slowly, tentatively, he leaned in. Nicole's breath caught. The world seemed to hold its breath with them. The gentle rustle of leaves, the whisper of the river, the fading warmth of the sun, all conspiring to frame this singular moment. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, gentle at first, exploratory, a bridge between mutual respect, fascination, and something deeper stirring beneath the surface. The kiss ended as softly as it began, leaving them both a little breathless, a little disoriented, yet undeniably drawn closer than before. Nicole pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Eric, we should take it slow," she said, voice trembling with a mix of caution and exhilaration. He nodded, smiling faintly. Of course, I understand, but I can't ignore it either. There's something between us, undeniable. As they stood side by side, watching the sun dip behind the horizon, Nicole realized that the conflict she had anticipated, the strict inspections, the clash of duty versus freedom, had given way to something far more complex. Trust and attraction, curiosity and admiration were intertwining in ways she hadn't expected. The first spark had ignited, and while their journey was only beginning, Nicole sensed that it would be one of equal challenge and deepening connection, a bond forged not just in moments of tenderness, but in the trials and truths yet to come. The following morning, Nicole returned to the older sector of the farm, a part less polished than the manicured fields and thriving orchards she had seen the day before. Here, rusted irrigation pipes coiled like dormant snakes, and the earth seemed heavier, damp with the residue of years of farming. She knelt near the water source, carefully collecting samples in sterile vials. Every drop of water was scrutinized, every sediment measured, every detail logged meticulously in her notebook. As she examined the samples under the portable analyzer she had brought, her heart sank. The readings were unmistakable: toxic compounds, chemical residues that could not naturally occur in a healthy ecosystem. A chill ran down her spine. The realization hit her like a punch. Something was very wrong. When Eric arrived, clipboard in hand, his presence was commanding but expectant. "Finding everything satisfactory?" he asked casually, though his eyes flicked toward her face for a reaction. Nicole looked up, trying to maintain her professional composure, but the fear and disbelief in her chest betrayed her. These readings," she stammered, holding up the vial. "The water, there are contaminants. Heavy metals, chemical residues. This is not natural. Eric, you need to explain this." Eric's expression shifted immediately. His brow furrowed, and a flash of something like shock, or was it indignation, crossed his features. "Contaminants? That's impossible. I oversee everything here. I would never risk the land like that." Nicole's gaze sharpened, suspicion igniting. "Eric, I know you care about this farm. I saw how you spoke about the orchards, about the soil, about the saplings. But these readings, they suggest deliberate contamination. I can't just ignore it." Eric stepped closer, frustration building. "Nicole, you have to trust me. I've managed this farm for years. I would never—" "You would never what?" she interrupted, voice rising with a mix of anger and fear. "Risk the health of the water, the land, the people who live downstream? Or are you just covering for someone else?" The accusation hit him like a slap. His hands clenched at his sides, a mix of disbelief and hurt crossing his face. "Cover for someone? You think I'd lie to you?" Nicole held her ground, her own heart pounding. "I don't know. I see the care you take, Eric, but right now, all I see are facts. And the facts are toxic." He ran a hand through his hair, exasperation flashing across his features. "Nicole, I don't understand. I've done everything to modernize and protect this farm. Why would I ever?" His voice trailed off, faltering, as he searched her eyes for understanding, for the benefit of the doubt. "I'm not saying it's you," she admitted, softer now, though the tension between them remained palpable. I need to know the truth. And right now, I have every reason to be afraid." For a long moment, they stood there, the wind carrying the earthy scent of the fields, the faint hum of machinery in the distance, the tension between duty, trust, and attraction pressing on both of them. Eric's pride and love for the farm clashed with Nicole's need for truth, creating a fragile, volatile barrier between them. Finally, Eric sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I swear to you, Nicole, I had no part in this. But if something is wrong, we'll find out together. I can't let the farm or you be hurt because of someone else's greed or negligence." Nicole's resolve wavered. She wanted to believe him, but the evidence was undeniable. The contaminants were real, and someone had to be responsible. For the first time since their initial clash, she looked at Eric not only with suspicion but with a pang of sadness, seeing the conflict etched on his face. The same man who had shown her the beauty of this land, now caught in a web of doubt and accusation. The first real fracture in their tentative trust had appeared, and while the spark of attraction remained, it was now overshadowed by fear, suspicion, and the weight of a truth yet to be fully revealed. Nicole knew this was only the beginning. Uncovering the contamination would test not only her skills, but also the fragile bond forming between her and Eric. That evening, the farm was cloaked in the soft hush of twilight. The fields shimmered silver under the fading light, and the air smelled faintly of earth and new growth. Nicole had not gone home. She lingered near the old barn, the one area of the estate Eric rarely showed visitors. Inside, dust motes danced in the last rays of sunlight as she carefully pried open the archive cabinet. Her fingers trembled slightly as she sifted through old contracts, invoices, and correspondence. Then, buried among routine records, she found it. A signed agreement between Eric's father and Terra-Chem, the chemical conglomerate responsible for local industrial activity. The paper detailed a series of illegal waste disposals, backed by million-dollar subsidies, designed to cover mounting debts while masking environmental damage. Her stomach churned. This is worse than I imagined, she whispered to herself. The reality settled like a heavy stone in her chest. The contamination in the water, the toxic soil, all deliberate, all hidden under the guise of modernization. And worst of all, Eric's family was complicit. When Eric arrived to check on her, he noticed the papers scattered on the floor. "Nicole, what are you?" His eyes widened as he realized what she had found. Nicole looked up at him, her face pale but determined. "Eric, your father. This agreement. Terra-Chem. They've been dumping waste for years, and your modernization project, it's a cover. The farm, the land, the water, it's all been compromised." Eric's jaw tightened, a storm of emotions crossing his features. Anger, disbelief, betrayal. "My father. He would never. He's supposed to protect this farm." Nicole shook her head, holding up the contract. "It's here. All of it. Signed, verified. He did it for money. For subsidies. To cover debts. He lied to you, to everyone." Eric sank onto a nearby crate, running his hands through his hair, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on him. I can't believe this. All this time, I thought I was saving the farm. I didn't know." His voice broke slightly, the controlled confidence of the man she had come to respect faltering. Nicole approached cautiously, her professional resolve mingling with personal empathy. "Eric, I know this is hard, but you need to see the truth, and you need to decide what you're going to do about it. I can't ignore it. The environment, the people, we have to act." He looked up at her, pain and conflict in his eyes. "And what about you? You're on my side, but now, it feels like I'm the enemy. You can't trust me, can you?" Nicole shook her head, voice firm but gentle. "I trust the man I've seen in the fields, the one who cares about this land. But right now, we have a bigger problem. The contamination, the illegal contracts, it's bigger than us, and we need to act together if we want to make things right." Eric exhaled sharply, the tension coiling in his chest slowly loosening. "You're right. We can't let this continue. I'll stand with you. But my father, he'll never agree. He'll try to stop us." Nicole nodded, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "Then we'll have to be careful. And smart. Every step from now on matters." They both understood, in that silent moment, that the stakes had shifted. What began as a professional inspection had become a moral battle, one that would test loyalty, courage, and trust. And while their attraction still lingered, it was now entangled with suspicion, fear, and the weight of impending conflict. The night settled over the farm, thick and quiet, as Nicole and Eric sat among the dusty crates and scattered documents. The revelation of the father's betrayal was a wound, raw and searing, but it was also a call to action, forcing them to confront not just external corruption, but the fragile threads of their own developing bond. In the distance, the wind rustled through the orchards, carrying the whisper of a storm yet to come, one that would challenge both their hearts and the land they were determined to protect. The next morning, the estate was cloaked in a tense stillness, the kind that comes just before a storm. Nicole and Eric had spent the night poring over the documents she had discovered, cross-referencing every date, signature, and transaction. The evidence was irrefutable, yet the weight of the situation pressed heavily on Eric's shoulders. He strode into his father's study, the heavy oak door closing behind him with a thud that echoed through the silent room. Mr. Berg looked up from his desk, his expression calm but cold, his eyes calculating. "Eric," he said smoothly, "what brings you here at this hour?" Eric's jaw tightened, and he placed the papers on the desk with deliberate force. I know everything. The contracts, the subsidies, the illegal waste disposal. I've seen the truth, and I will not let it continue. His father's lips curled into a faint, condescending smile. Truth? You think you understand the truth? Everything I've done was to protect this family, to keep the farm alive. You're young, naive, sentimental. You don't grasp the bigger picture. Nicole, standing just outside the doorway, watched the exchange with bated breath. She could see the conflict etched into Eric's face, loyalty to his father battling the moral imperative to act. I do understand, Eric shot back, voice sharp, controlled. I understand that lying, covering up, and poisoning the land is not protection. It's corruption, and I will not stand by while you destroy everything I care about, or the people I care about. Mr. Berg's eyes darkened, a flicker of anger breaking through his composed mask. And what of family loyalty? What of the farm's legacy? You would betray me. Eric's hands clenched into fists. I will protect this farm, yes, but not at the expense of truth. Not at the expense of Nicole, the workers, or the land itself. The choice is yours, Father. You either stop this, or I stop you. Nicole stepped forward cautiously. Eric's right, she said firmly. The evidence is clear. If you continue, the consequences will be severe for the environment, for the farm, and for you personally. It's not too late to make the right choice. For a long moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Mr. Berg's gaze swept over Nicole, then back to his son, calculating and cold. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, a weary sigh escaping him. You always were headstrong, Eric. And you have grown beyond what I expected. But remember this, choosing the moral path often comes with sacrifices. Eric met his father's gaze steadily. I understand the risks, but some sacrifices are worth making. Protecting the truth, protecting Nicole, protecting the land. That's a choice I will never regret. Outside the study, Nicole's hand brushed against Eric's, a silent gesture of solidarity and shared purpose. He squeezed her hand briefly, the tension in his shoulders easing just enough to allow a flicker of warmth and connection. Their attraction remained, stronger for the shared struggle, but tempered by the gravity of the moment. The father-son confrontation had left Eric resolute but shaken. He now faced the impossible task of balancing family loyalty with moral responsibility, while Nicole prepared her report, a document that could expose the truth and change everything. As the sun set over the Berg estate, casting long shadows across the fields, Nicole and Eric stood together on the edge of the orchard. The storm was approaching, both literal and metaphorical, but they would face it united, even as doubts and dangers loomed ahead. For the first time, Eric fully realized the depth of his feelings for Nicole, not just admiration or attraction, but a fierce, protective connection, one that would drive him to challenge his father, confront corruption, and risk everything for the woman he had come to love. The next morning dawned gray and heavy with the threat of rain. Nicole had barely finished organizing the evidence she had gathered when a low rumble of engines echoed across the estate. She looked up, alarm pricking at her senses. Black SUVs were speeding down the main access road toward the farmhouse, their presence too deliberate, too threatening to be coincidental. Nicole, Eric said, his voice tight with tension, stay behind me. He moved swiftly, placing himself between her and the approaching vehicles. His posture was protective, unyielding. The man she had seen tender and vulnerable in the fields now a shield forged in urgency and danger. The SUVs screeched to a halt, and men in dark suits stepped out, their expressions unreadable but their intentions clear. Nicole's stomach twisted. These were no ordinary inspectors or bureaucrats. They were operatives from Terra-Chem, and they knew she had discovered the contracts and water contamination evidence. One of the men stepped forward, his tone deceptively calm. Miss Nicole, we strongly suggest you hand over any documents related to the Berg estate and Terra-Chem operations. It's in everyone's best interest. Eric's jaw tightened. You'll get nothing from us, he said, his voice cold and resolute. Leave now, and no one gets hurt. Touch her, and I swear. His hand rested lightly but firmly on Nicole's shoulder, a silent promise of protection. Nicole felt a jolt of reassurance amidst her fear. The protective wall Eric had built around her, both physically and emotionally, made her heart pound. Eric, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. We have to be careful. They know too much. Eric's eyes scanned the perimeter, calculating, his mind racing through escape routes, backup plans, and strategies to protect both Nicole and the evidence. We'll move inside, lock it down, and then find a way to transmit the data. We're not giving them a chance to manipulate or intimidate us. As they moved swiftly into the farmhouse, Eric physically positioned himself in front of Nicole at every doorway, every corridor. The men outside tried to intimidate, circling and shouting veiled threats, but Eric's presence was a steady barrier, unwavering and commanding. Nicole noticed the slight tension in his jaw, the subtle flare of his nostrils, the way his eyes never left the threat. For all his outward composure, she could feel the adrenaline, the fierce protective instinct he refused to suppress. Inside, the farmhouse's old structure creaked and groaned under the stress of the storm, wind rattling windows and shaking shutters. Nicole worked quickly to prepare the digital copies of the documents, every keystroke amplified by the sense of imminent danger. Eric kept watch, scanning windows and doors, ready to intercept any intrusion. "Nicole," he said quietly, leaning close, "you stay calm. We're in this together. You've been fearless in uncovering the truth, and now it's time to protect it. I won't let anyone hurt you." Nicole's heart ached with a mix of fear and something deeper, a swelling warmth that coursed through her at his words. She nodded, swallowing hard, aware that their bond was solidifying under fire. The attraction that had been a spark was now tempered by trust and shared risk. As the operatives continued their intimidation outside, using the secure satellite connection Eric provided, Nicole initiated the final upload of the evidence while he stood guard at the door. Nicole watched, awed by his focus, his bravery, and his willingness to place her safety above all else. They acted as a single unit. 2 minds, 2 hearts, 1 mission. By the time the SUVs finally retreated, either satisfied that intimidation had failed or unable to breach their defenses, Nicole and Eric stood side by side, exhausted but resolute. The storm had passed, but the tension lingered, a reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. In that moment, Nicole realized that her feelings for Eric had deepened beyond admiration or attraction. There was trust, undeniable and solid, forged in the crucible of risk and fear. And as they looked out over the estate, battered but unbroken, she knew that together they could face anything, even the wrath of Terra-Chem and the betrayal of powerful family ties. The standoff had reached its breaking point. With the satellite transmission complete and the evidence securely in the hands of the authorities, the immediate threat of the Terra-Chem operatives shifted from intimidation to desperate retreat. Eric and Nicole stayed barricaded within the farmhouse throughout the night, monitoring the digital confirmation of their report. They were no longer just an inspector and a landowner. They were partners who had dismantled a conspiracy at the cost of Eric's family peace. The silence that followed was heavy, but for the first time, it was a silence of victory rather than fear. The following morning brought with it a tense quiet over the Berg estate, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Nicole and Eric had spent the night preparing for the final step, ensuring that the evidence transmitted reached the regulatory authorities and law enforcement intact. Every document, every digital file, had been meticulously checked and cross-referenced. The weight of responsibility pressed down on both of them, but their bond, tested and strengthened through danger, kept them steady. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered. Police vehicles and specialized law enforcement teams arrived at the estate and the adjacent Terra-Chem facilities. Officers and agents moved with precision, securing the premises, arresting personnel, and confiscating evidence. Among those detained was Eric's father, whose expression was a mixture of shock, indignation, and reluctant resignation. Eric stood frozen as he watched the officers lead his father toward the patrol car. The old man didn't look back, marking a painful but necessary severance of their lifelong bond. The truth he had tried to conceal was now exposed to the world. Nicole watched, a bittersweet sensation twisting in her chest. She had succeeded in protecting the environment, securing justice, and exposing corruption, but at a personal cost. The estate's legacy, the farm Eric loved so dearly, was under threat of partial seizure due to the environmental violations. The victory was hard-won, but incomplete. Eric stood beside her, his face a mask of both relief and sorrow. "We saved the river," he said quietly, voice tinged with pride and melancholy. But we couldn't save everything. The farm, part of it might be lost. Nicole turned to him, seeing the weight of responsibility in his eyes. Eric, look at what we accomplished. You didn't allow lies and greed to destroy the land. That matters more than anything. And we'll rebuild what we can, together. Their eyes met, and for the first time in days, they allowed themselves a moment of vulnerability. The fear, the danger, and the uncertainty of the past weeks had transformed into something else, an unspoken acknowledgement of the bond that had deepened between them. He took her hand gently, fingers intertwining. Nicole, through all of this, I realized something. You've become more than an ally, more than a friend. You're the person I want by my side, no matter what challenges remain. Nicole felt a surge of warmth, mingled with the adrenaline of the ordeal. Eric, I feel the same. The farm, the river, the land, it brought us together. And nothing will break what we've built between us. The law enforcement teams continued their work, but in that moment, Nicole and Eric allowed themselves a quiet connection, a pause in the chaos. The fight for justice had been won, the family's corruption exposed, and the environment safeguarded. Yet, they knew the battle to restore the farm fully would be ongoing. Standing on the edge of the orchard, hands still clasped, they watched as the authorities processed the arrests and secured the evidence. It was a bittersweet victory. The river flowed freely, the truth had prevailed, but part of the estate's legacy was gone. And yet, in the midst of loss, Nicole and Eric found something enduring. Trust, courage, and a profound love, tested in fire, had emerged intact. They were no longer simply individuals confronting obstacles. They were a partnership, united in purpose and heart, ready to face the uncertain future together. As the sun dipped low, casting the fields in a golden glow, Nicole and Eric shared a quiet, tentative kiss, a promise of resilience, hope, and a love forged in adversity. The past could not be undone, but together, they would build a new beginning, stronger and more enduring than before. A year had passed since the fall of the Berg dynasty and the dramatic revelations that had shaken the estate to its core. The farm, though partially reclaimed by authorities for environmental restoration, had seen significant progress thanks to Eric's unwavering dedication and Nicole's guidance. The once contaminated river now ran clear, and patches of land that had been neglected or poisoned were slowly coming back to life under careful reclamation efforts. Nicole stood in the central field, surveying the progress. Rows of newly planted crops stretched toward the horizon, their vibrant green shoots a testament to months of labor, patience, and perseverance. She breathed deeply, feeling the earthy scent of revitalized soil fill her lungs. Beside her, Eric watched with a quiet pride, the satisfaction of rebuilding tempered by the memories of the struggles they had endured together. This is incredible, Nicole said softly, her eyes scanning the fields. We've come so far. Eric smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. We have, and it's not just the farm. It's us too. Everything we went through, it brought us here, stronger, together. Nicole reached out and took his hand. The warmth of his palm, calloused from work but steady and reassuring, made her heart swell. I never imagined that fighting for the land could also bring us this, she said, her voice trembling slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. Eric pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. This is real, Nicole. No secrets, no threats, no lies. Just us. And whatever comes next, we face it side by side. The wind carried the distant sound of the restored river, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle hum of the farm. For the first time in months, there was peace, hard-won, yet genuine. Over the following months, the reclamation of the land continued, guided by sustainable practices and Nicole's expertise. The estate flourished, and the community took notice, recognizing the commitment of both Nicole and Eric to both the environment and ethical stewardship. Their collaboration had turned a scandal into a blueprint for responsible land management, and their bond had become a symbol of resilience and trust. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, Eric and Nicole walked hand in hand along the riverbank. The golden light reflected on the water, creating a serene and almost magical atmosphere. I can't believe how far we've come, Nicole said, her voice filled with awe. Eric squeezed her hand gently. Neither can I, but it's proof that even after chaos and betrayal, there's hope. There's always hope if you fight for it. Nicole smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Then let's make this our life. Honest, together, and with the land we love thriving around us. Eric kissed the top of her head, a silent promise that transcended words. Together, he whispered. The river sparkled as it flowed past them. The fields stretched out in green abundance, and the farmhouse stood as a symbol of endurance and renewal. In that moment, Nicole and Eric knew that while challenges would always come, they had each other, and that was more powerful than any obstacle. As night fell and stars began to glitter above the reclaimed land, they stood united, their hearts full, their past reconciled, and their future bright. The farm, once a site of deception and danger, had become a haven of truth, love, and hope, a new beginning for both the land and for them. The storm had passed, the legacy had been preserved, and Nicole and Eric, hand in hand, stepped into their life together, stronger, wiser, and irrevocably bonded. Thank you for listening to the story. Write your thoughts in the comments.